Well, welcome. It's great to see so many new faces in the room today, and also the friends and colleagues of the Center for Social Innovation. We're in the room today because we're inspired by the theme, Innovation for Social Change, Living by Numbers. In a nutshell, we want to make the world a better place. As the executive director for the Center for Social Innovation here, I live and breathe social innovation. And to the chagrin of my parents, I have one of those jobs that's hard to explain what field I'm in, let alone what I do at a dinner party, because social innovation is about new ideas, new solutions, and new thinking. But as Einstein said, we will not solve the problems that we currently face by using the current thinking. We need new ideas and new solutions, and that's what innovation is all about. In our short time together, I'm going to talk about defining what social innovation is. So while we've been kind of at this micro level around numbers, I'm going to take us a little above to think, what is social innovation? We're out of an academic institution, so what do we actually know about it? And most importantly, what can we do if we want to foster more social innovation in the future? So here's a pretty picture of the social change landscape. Since the early 90s, there's been an explosion of adding the word social as a modifier to the world we have today, getting social entrepreneurs, social enterprise, social capital, and of course, social innovation. And these are all important constructs. But if we really want to create social value, it takes more than adding the word social to business terms. And we need to be serious about defining what it is and understanding how it operates. The construct that's getting the most recognition in the last 10 years is social entrepreneurship. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with those on this page, Mohammed Yunus and Jacqueline Novogratz. They've created great value in the world today. And the social entrepreneurship field tends to celebrate boldness, tenacity, and creativity to drive social change. Now let's look at some of the social innovations of the world. Similarly, these are very familiar. Charter schools, microfinance, emissions trading. As you can see, the social innovations come from different sectors. Some come from nonprofits, for-profits, some out of government. I'm guessing the distinctions between social entrepreneurship and social innovation are not yet clear. Hopefully, this little stool will help us. On the one end of the stool, we do have social entrepreneurship, and this is the great man or woman theory. We have academic centers around the world trying to figure out how do we get more Mohammed Yunus. On the second leg of the stool, we have the social enterprise field, which really looks at organizations. How do we get more Grameen banks? What are the structures, the model, the evolution to grow that? And in the middle of the stool is social capital, which is the investment in the resources that helps invest in the entrepreneur and the organizations. But don't we really want to know about how do we get more microfinance? And so as we move to the definition of social innovation, you can see it's based on the idea and the actual solution. And two other distinctions I'd like to highlight is the social entrepreneur and enterprise field based on the term entrepreneurship tends to look at nonprofit startup organizations. Social innovation, in contrast, is sector agnostic. They can come from big organizations, small organizations, business, or government. Secondly, what we really need to understand is the idea and the mechanisms that allow those innovations to grow. How are the interactions between the people, organizations, and systems to get more of those? Now, this talk is usually 40 minutes, and I have shorter than that. So I'm going to power through the case example, but I think it's important to look at one concrete story of a social innovation to highlight what we've learned for those recommendations in the future. We studied a number of them. We looked at them on the continuum of the innovation from idea generation to piloting to prototyping to diffusion and scaling. The one I'm going to highlight is emissions trading. I'm sure I am Silicon Valley. Almost everyone in this room is familiar with the concept. A cap is put on a pollutant. The polluters are given credits that they can emit. If they emit less, they can sell those credits. If they emit more, they need to buy them. It's an efficient way to reach a pollution goal. The case study we looked at was the reduction of sulfur dioxide for acid rain. The roots of that started with the passage of the Clean Air Act in 1970. Huge regulation change. You had the launch of the EPA, you had regulatory upheaval, business up in arms concerned about cost and what that's going to mean to their profits, and you had NGOs not trusting anybody. Shortly thereafter of the Clean Air Act, you had the Commerce Department and the smelting industry come together and say, we have this idea that let's let industry decide the most effective way to reduce their pollutions. Nothing really happened. By 1975, almost every state missed their compliance for the Clean Air Act. Jimmy Carter comes in 1976, he's like, oh my gosh, we're not getting anywhere, we need to think of cost-effective regulation. This was the mechanisms driving innovation during the idea generation stage. Lack of trust, antagonism, and lack of collaborative work together. 1977, Bill Drayton comes on as the assistant administrator for the EPA, and he makes fundamental changes. He reorganizes the whole EPA to work in a collaborative manner with business, and he takes a marketing approach to the solution. I'm not going to tell business what to do. I have to sell them on what to do. So that little idea we had in 1972 comes back as the alternative emissions reduction option. The NGOs at the time don't think this is viable, they think it's a watering down of the policy, and NRDC sues Chevron over this. These are the mechanisms driving in a social innovation at the piloting and prototyping stage. NRDC eventually loses its case in court. It sees the train is on the track to use this policy and eventually comes to the table. By 1990, we have President Bush coming in as our environmentally friendly president, and we actually get an amendment to the Clean Air Act with a provision for acid rain. NGOs are at the table, business at the table, governments at the table. By 1995, the first year of compliance, you have a huge reduction in emissions. More importantly, the estimated cost for this was $3 to $25 billion. It came in under $1 billion. And with this, you had ultimate success by the end of the 90s. Okay, they weren't hanging out together singing Kumbaya, but the mechanisms that changed included inclusiveness. Everybody came to the table. It included an approach to be solution-oriented. NGOs had to give, business had to give. They all had to give and take to get to the best solution for the whole. And lastly, it was cross-sector. So, if we know that, and again, we looked at fair trade, emissions trading, charter schools, individual development accounts, community policing, a number of social innovations. What can we do in the future if we want more social innovations and we want them to get to scale more quickly? First and foremost, never mistake a clear view for a short distance. The emission trading option was an idea that took 23 years to become a viable solution. At the Center for Social Innovation, I feel like every week I get another email about the next hub, incubator, or institute out there. And those are all great ideas. I don't want to take away from that. But to really get solutions, it takes going up that long social innovation hill. The challenges come after idea generation, after piloting and prototyping, when you really want to get that innovation to scale. And we see over and over again, they fall in the chasm. Because what that takes is a new skill set, new relationships, new partners, and much, much more. Secondly, focus on your strategic lever. In the emissions trading to reduce pollution, the solution was business efficiency. And oftentimes, the most obvious solution, regulation, that was one, but to get to the better solution that's going to give you, similar to the Pareto rule, that 80-20, 20% of your effort is going to give you 80% of your impact, isn't always evident or clear. Thirdly, before I jump to that, we saw that with fair trade and mainstream markets. Doing fair trade in these small local shops is great, catalogs are great, but if you really want to reach people, you need to go to Walmart. Similar with IDAs, their lever was government funding. Lastly, and I think most importantly, is commit to cross-sector collaboration. Social innovations are going to require everybody's involvement. And similarly, with emissions trading, when they all came to the table, we saw solutions. We know we can't solve climate change without including petrochemical firms, large NGOs, small NGOs, developing country governments, and our own. So in closing, oh my gosh, I'm going to end on time. We are going to hear a lot today about numbers and the role of technology for social change, and those are all great things. But it takes more than that if we really want to have large change in the future. And whether you're an entrepreneur, hi students up there, whether you work for a large corporation, we are all actors to help make this happen. And what I hope we can all do is first and foremost have the commitment and the tenacity to go the long haul. The social innovations aren't going to come to us in quarterly returns. Some may come in years, some may come in decades, most are going to take our lifetime. And I think we need to change our thinking to commit for that long haul. Secondly, be thoughtful about what that lever is. The easiest one, the one that comes first, is not always the best. Challenge yourself to think more deeply. And then lastly, as an individual, as an organization, commit to working with your allies, your enemies, and your partners across sectors, because it is going to take all of us working differently together. And I know these last three ideas, they're not sexy and they're not glamorous, and we live in Silicon Valley. But sometimes it's those less glamorous things that we have to do if we really want to make a difference and address the global and environmental problems we have. Thank you.